The New York Mets get their first sweep of 2025. It doesn't look pretty. Jack and I are matching. We're doing this weird thing on the show. Welcome into another edition of the Bleav in Mets podcast. Jack, a weird series for the Mets, but they've won 4 in a row. They're 6-3 on a season, and they just swept the Toronto Blue Jays. We're going to try to talk about it all, but how are you, my friend?
Good, Chris. I mean, you said it. Weird series. It's weird coming out of a sweep feeling the way that I do, which is some good, some bad. But the Mets, as we stand right now on April 6th, a lot of season left.
Oh, yeah.
As we stand here right now, the Mets are 1 game behind the Phillies for the National League East lead. So, listen, if they keep winning games, doesn't matter how they do it. I just like to see that it's continued for a little stretch here. It's a nice winning streak we got going with the Marlins coming into town tomorrow.
Yeah, if we look at this series, the story of this series for me, and it's been the story of the 9 games so far of the year, it's the New York Mets bullpen. They have they've been lights out. You texted me during the game today and you said that they're a wagon. I have gone as far as to say I think this bullpen is elite because every single guy has contributed in a meaningful way so far through 9 games, and it feels like no matter whose name gets pulled out of the hat, whoever is asked to get a key out, they come through. You look at in the first game of this series where the Mets get a bunch of runs late and they blow the game open. Reed Garrett, AJ Minter, Max Kranick combined, they don't allow a run at all, and Max Kranick throws 2 innings to save the other high leverage arms or to save the arms in general. And then in the second game of this series where the Mets picked up their first walk-off of the year, it was Jose Butto and Huascar Brazaban's turn to make sure that you don't use Garrett 2 days in a row. You don't use Minter 2 days in a row. And those guys come in and they don't allow a hit. Edwin Diaz picks up his second save of the year in the finale where they finish off the sweep. It's this bullpen is the story because the starting pitching isn't giving you the consistent depth, and you saw that in 2 starts in this series. And don't worry, we are going to talk about David Peterson and what Carlos Mendoza did in the 5th inning of the finale of this series. I have a lot of thoughts on that. But the story so far is even though the Mets rotation isn't giving you the length that you would ideally like to see, the Mets bullpen is picking up a lot of the slack here, and they have just been lights out through 9 games.
So I didn't do the math on innings pitched by the bullpen because decimals are hard. But what I can tell you is McGill pitched 5 1/3 in the first game. Canning pitched 4+ in the second game. And David Peterson got through 4 2/3 in the third game. So almost like half of the entire series was pitched by the Mets bullpen, if not almost like exactly half. And I did do some of the easier math before we started recording here, Chris. 9 hits, 1 run across 3 games from the bullpen. If the Mets can get that kind of production and that kind of relief for the whole season, I'm in. Sign me up. Because I fully expect that the starting rotation as we get further into the season, as the pitch limits kind of fade away to the more normal 100-ish standard, this bullpen is going to be able to be only the elite guys throwing later in the games, and they've shown so far that they're able to handle whatever challenge is thrown at them. And we have to shout out you because you called your shot with Max Kranick before this season started. And we'll talk about some guys later on in this episode that we maybe had some predictions incorrect about. A couple of hitters.
Brett Beatty.
But Max Kranick has been everything we expected him to be based off of his spring training so far. Multi-inning guy, consistently getting outs, getting out of insane jams that the Mets somehow manage him into. Everything has worked out well for guys like him. For other guys that were less expected, like Huascar Brazaban has been excellent so far, Jose Butto. And what also gets me excited, Chris, is there are a couple guys that the Mets are still waiting on. Like Drew Smith, don't forget, is going to come back at some point next year. Daniel Nunez is going to be healthy at some point again this year. Edwin Diaz's velocity is still not quite up to the level that he's normally used to throwing at. And so it gets me excited looking at how successful this Mets pitching lab has been with all these bullpen guys, including guys like Kranick and like Brazaban, who haven't been big contributors in the past. And it gets me excited about those past contributors coming back at an outstanding level and how much that will be a boon for the Mets going further into the season, especially once, like I said, these starters are able to get more depth into games.
It is a strength of this team. You're seeing it very clearly in the first couple series of the year, and they're doing so without a ton of support from the offense. The offense is still lagging behind the pitching here through the first 3 series of the season, and so you expect that worm to turn at some point and for us to see this offense be more what we think it's going to be on paper. And when that happens, that might pick up if the bullpen has a rough patch for a little bit. And I just think this is a strength of this team that is only going to get better and better when Sean Manaea returns and can go deep into games, when Frankie Montas gets added, when McGill, Peterson, Canning, Senga go deeper and deeper into starts like you're mentioning. I think it's going to allow you to keep all of your arms fresh, and it's truthfully going to give Carlos Mendoza a real tough problem to solve of which good reliever do I use in this spot. But it's a really nice place to be as an organization. The first game of this series, the Mets picked up a 5-0 win over the Toronto Blue Jays, and the story of this one was Tyler McGill, 5 1/3, 2 hits, no runs, no earned runs, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. You were in attendance for this game. You got to see McGill up close and in person. And I think with McGill and with the pitching overall, they just seem to have one weird inning that just goes sideways on them. And not in a like they gave up 3 runs, but just in a walk here, a bloop hit there. Now I'm throwing more pitches, and now it stops me from being able to go deeper into the game. And my manager's got to bring me out of this game before I can finish 6 innings or go into the 7th. It just feels like the story so far is they're crisp for pockets of the game, but the crispness for an entire start is just missing. And McGill was the best starter of the 3 this weekend in this series, but they're still just missing just a little bit of that consistency. But McGill was great. 2 straight starts. He's up to 2-0 for the year, but he's been really, really good.
Yeah, McGill finished the game, like you said, 5 1/3, 4 strikeouts, only 2 hits, no runs allowed, ERA down to 0.87. But, I mean, you said it. Like, it's just been weird to watch him cruise so well through the first 5 innings of this game. And we were texting about it, Chris. We did the math on his pitch count. It looked like he was in position to go 7, maybe into the 8th inning because of how efficient he was to start the game. He gets a line out from Bo Bichette, 3rd time through the order, leadoff batter. He gets 2 strikes on Vlad Guerrero, 0-2 count, and then just completely loses the strike zone. And a couple of walks later, Reed Garrett ends up coming in and striking out the next 2 batters to get out of the inning. But that's kind of the thing that I'm looking for the starting rotation guys like McGill, like Canning, to improve at further into the season. They need to be able to get through those weird, rough patches and pitch deeper into games, because it was just, again, it was just weird seeing McGill look so dominant for so long and then completely lose everything. We'll talk about David Peterson, kind of what happened in today's game in the series finale as well, because it was almost a similar situation. But I'm happy with what I see from Tyler McGill. I mean, we've talked about how he looks good in March and April and then starts to fall off in the summer months, but so far so good with McGill. I liked what I saw from some of the hitting as well, specifically Pete Alonso in the first game of the series. But yeah, just I feel very conflicted about the whole series because of moments like McGill, where he's kind of a perfect microcosm of what the series looked like, with a lot of good but some weird badness sprinkled in there.
Yeah, April 5th, 2025, the Mets get their first walk-off of the season, but it will forever be remembered as the Jesse Winker game, because Jesse Winker, 3 for 4, 3 extra base hits, 2 triples, including a 2-strike, 2-out, game-tying 2 RBI triple that was, I think, inches from being a go-ahead 3-run home run. And this is the juxtaposition of the good and bad of Carlos Mendoza going with his gut and not necessarily going with the numbers, because in the finale of this series, we'll talk about a gut decision that I thought almost cost the Mets the game. And here is a gut decision that is the reason why they could even walk it off in the 9th in the first place, because on a cold, rainy night in April, he's kept Jesse Winker in the game to go left on left instead of going with a righty off the bench to force the Blue Jays to maybe go to a right-handed reliever and go to somebody that isn't just cold because they haven't hit in the game, but cold because it is cold outside. It was like 44 degrees when Edwin Diaz took the mound in the 9th inning to lock up the win for the New York Mets, or to give them the chance to walk it off, I should say. And so to stick with Winker in that spot, that's just a gut thing, and that is one of those decisions that I like from Carlos Mendoza. I like that he pushed that button, and I like that Jesse Winker rewarded him for making a good decision, because I can't blame him from not wanting to turn to Tyrone Taylor or Luisangel Acuna on a cold night when they've just been sitting around. Their body's probably stiff because of how cold it is. That's a tough ask of a young player and a guy in Tyrone Taylor who is known for being able to get on base, but isn't known for being a great hitter. So it's not like you're dealing with a whole host of... It's not like Francisco Lindor got a designated night off and he's the guy you're looking at there in that spot on the bench. That's a little bit of a different scenario. And so credit to Mendoza for trusting his gut there and making that decision, and it paid off in a big way. And it's Francisco Lindor with the first walk-off of 2025 with a sac fly in the bottom of the 9th, and the Mets get a walk-off. Griffin Canning makes a start, 4 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned run, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts. And same thing as we talked about with McGill, it just kind of stacks up for Canning. It wasn't one bad inning that did him in. It was just every so often he would have an inning where I allow an extra base runner, so now I have to throw more pitches. And you saw that in the second inning of the start for Canning, where he just kind of had to battle a little bit. And the Mets offense didn't really support him. They had leadoff hits in the first and second inning, and they couldn't score any runs. They did do all their damage late. At one point, they were 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position before Jesse Winker hit that 2-out, 2-strike, 2 RBI triple. Actually, after he hit that triple, they were 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position, but it was the only one that they needed. And then shout out to Oscar Brazoban. They don't have that chance in the 8th if he doesn't give them 2 1/3 scoreless innings after Jose Budo bridged the gap. So shout out to Brazoban, who has been a bright spot here so far. But your thoughts on the first walk-off of the year in the second game of this series?
Good to see Lindor contributing. He's, I think, had a hit in every single game in this series, including a couple of doubles to start the first 2 games. Being there in person for that first one in game 1 was awesome to see because of the crowd reaction with the initial call being out and then review and then the overturn call. And to have Lindor have that moment was really cool. Also, to be there for my girl was an awesome moment that I hadn't gotten to experience before. But to see him be able to come through like that in the bottom of the 9th inning in the game 2 was really fun. I also, every part of this series felt like a weird microcosm of the series as a whole. Like I talked about McGill being shaky in the first game. The second game, it's like the fact that Winker had the double and the 2 triples. It felt like every game there was just kind of a guy offensively contributing while the rest of the offense was pretty stagnant. And so, yeah, Winker leads the National League now in triples with his 2 on Saturday night. So feels like, at least on that second one in July, that ball is out of here. But to have the production that he had for, like you said, Mendoza to stick with him in that moment, I wonder how much of that calculus was affected by the fact that he did have Starling Marte pinch hit for Sanger in the previous inning.
And it looked bad.
How much was dictated by the fact that he had a double and a triple already going into that at-bat. So things worked out for the Mets. It just kind of felt also similarly to the series finale in Miami. A lot of weirdness, a lot of not great stuff, but in the end, the Mets pulled out the win, and to have the walk-off moment in the second game, the second home game of the year is kind of the cherry on top.
And I think that thread continues into the third game of the series, and we're recording this pod 20 minutes, half hour after the Mets finished the sweep of the Toronto Blue Jays to make it 4 in a row that they have won. Their first sweep of the Blue Jays since 2001, and another game that had weirdness because David Peterson, if you look at his line, it's not great. It's not terrible. 4 2/3, 3 hits, 1 earned run. He had 5 walks. The command was an issue, and he was battling it. And that's what we keep talking about with the starting pitching of just not getting deep into games, because if you're going to walk 5 guys, that's going to do you in. You're never going to touch the 6th or 7th inning of a ball game just because your pitch count's going to be super elevated. The Mets struck early in this game. Pete Alonso, who's really the only consistent hitter that the Mets have in their lineup, he put him in front 1-0. Nimmo followed that up with a sacrifice fly to make it 2-0. But the story of this game is the 5th inning. and the decision by Carlos Mendoza after David Peterson clearly was dealing with something. We learned after the game that he was nauseous and had some blurry vision. You said in the pre-show, potentially some vertigo, really the only thing that makes sense considering those two things were what Peterson was dealing with. But the trainer comes out, Hefner comes out, Mendoza comes out, they talk to him, he throws a couple pitches, and they keep him in the game, which I thought was a weird decision on its own. But all right, he's okay. We don't think this is anything serious. We're going to give him a chance to get out of this and to finish 5 innings. But then he faces Anthony Santander, and he throws every pitch basically into the left-handed batter's box, and he walks him. And he puts him on base, so now the bases are loaded, and a lefty in Anders Jimenez walks into the batter's box. What are we doing? Why is he, David Peterson, then getting that at bat after he threw nearly every pitch directly where Jimenez was going to stand?
And Hefner came out again after the walk to Anthony Santander.
Right. After Santander gets walked, it is, okay, we're going to go out and talk to him again. What are we... Max Kranick is getting ready there. Like, he is getting ready in the bullpen. You have an elite pen. We just spent the whole open of the show talking about how good this bullpen has been and how much of a strength it has been for this team, bailing them out over and over and over again. It's not like nobody was unavailable. You were dealing with having most of your guys, if not everybody, available to you. So, okay, I got to use Max Kranick in the 5th inning. Garrett's available. Stanek's available. Minter's available. You'd expect Diaz to be available if there's a save opportunity. So you have your A relievers. Just go out there and make the move. And instead, he gets to face Jimenez. And what does he do? He plunks him. And a run scores. And now Max Kranick has to come into a spot of bases are loaded. It's a 2-1 game. Here you go, kid. Bail us out again, just like you did in Houston with Alvarez and Walker in a key spot. Here you go, kid. Do it again. And luckily for the Mets, Kranick was able to deliver. But that's a completely avoidable situation when you have a bullpen this good and you have everybody available. I don't know why he faced Santander, and I think it's inexcusable that he faced Jimenez after the at bat to Santander. I think it is inexcusable that he got that next at bat.
It was just so weird, right? Like, it just, nothing about it really made any sense. You could tell that something was going on in that previous at bat to Vlad Guerrero. You think that when everyone comes out, and they talked about it on the broadcast, when you see the trainer, when you see Hefner, when you see Mendoza all out there, you assume they're going to say, all right, you know, whatever's ailing you is going to be enough to convince us that you're not good to go for this next hitter. Mendoza said after the game that he was trying to get Peterson to about 90 pitches was his limit for this start today, and that he was hoping that he could get through Jimenez as a lefty-on-lefty matchup before bringing in Kranick for the 6th or maybe multiple innings. But I just, like you said it, Chris, like, I don't understand why he faced Santander, and then when he throws 5 pitches, 4 of which are in the left-handed batter's box, what do you think's going to happen when the lefty comes up and he still doesn't have that command? It was the exact pitch that he had thrown 4 straight times before, and this time there was a lefty standing in the batter's box. It hits him, and then you set up another weird situation for Kranick. Now, you and I know this because we've been following this team since spring training. Max Kranick is a good pitcher. He's very good at baseball, and he was able to get them out of the inning with a little pop-up. By the way, he got through the 6th inning as well, so he's faced 22 batters this year and has retired 21 of them. That's pretty good.
That's good. Excellent job by Max Kranick.
But I just don't understand putting him in these situations over and over again, because eventually it's going to come back to bite them when you're leaving the starter in too long, when there's clearly, it's not just like a strategic thing. There was clearly something wrong, and after the first batter gets walked easily on 5 pitches, I just don't understand going out there again with Hefner and not saying, hey man, look, you don't got it today. Something is clearly wrong or whatever. We got Kranick up. He's going to come in bases loaded, yes, but not with the run in, not with the potential to tie the game on a walk or a wild pitch. So I don't know. It was just really weird, and I didn't love the explanation after the game. It didn't really make me feel that much better.
Even if, let's say just for argument's sake, that you wanted the left-on-left matchup even after he lost Santander, right? You bring the trainer out, and I'm not saying fake the injury, but he's clearly hurt. So if the trainer comes out and they pull him from the game, whoever comes into the game has all the time in the world to warm up. Bring Danny Young in. He hasn't pitched since, I'm looking at the last time he pitched was Wednesday. Now it wasn't a great outcome, But if you want the left-on-left matchup, you have Danny Young who is available to you. Right. You just bring the trainer out. You go, okay, something's not right here. We're taking him out of the game. You let Danny Young have all the time in the world to warm up. You get your left-on-left matchup. If he gets out Jimenez, you just transition into the rest of your bullpen. No problem. I just don't understand. I can kind of get the idea of if he's okay health-wise and there's nothing like seriously wrong with his elbow or his shoulder or his back, letting him get Santander. But your eyeballs watching the Santander at bat told you this was about to go off the rails, and then you let him face Jimenez anyway. It just didn't make any sense. Now, it wasn't a problem. They got out of it. But when you have an offense that only scored 2 runs, if those opportunities go the other team's way, I don't trust this offense right now. And that leads to probably the biggest thing that we need to discuss here is the second base position is giving the New York Mets absolutely nothing right now. Brett Baty is hitting .095 to start the season, and his at-bats just look really, really difficult. I texted you at one point that everything looks hard. It just looks like every swing decision is really difficult for Brett Baty right now. And it's not like Luis Angel Acuna is lighting the world on fire in the limited at-bats that we've seen from him. The Mets are getting nothing out of second base right now. They're getting really nothing out of center field. Jose Siri is getting the lion's share of the starts in center field. And while you love the defense, you love the speed, and you at some point are going to see the power from Jose Siri, it's just not great. And Vientos is struggling. So your 7, 8, and your 6, 7, and 8 hitters are basically automatic outs. And you started Hayden Senger because Luis Torrens is dealing with a forearm contusion. 6 through 9, I mean, I know Senger picked up a hit today, but going into the ballpark, you're looking at the way those guys are playing right now, and 6 through 9, you're basically saying these are automatic outs.
And not to mention the struggles from the DH position as well. With Marte hasn't been phenomenal. Winker outside of Saturday's game hasn't been great either.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, you're basically looking at kind of what we were talking about coming into the season is, okay, the Mets have Lindor, Soto, Alonso, and Nimmo / Vientos at the top of the order. Vientos has been struggling. Nimmo's been okay. Soto's been okay. But right now, it's like the offense is Pete Alonso, and that's kind of it. So it's really concerning, and obviously the Mets are they're missing Francisco Alvarez. They're missing Jeff McNeil. You hope at some point guys like Jose Siri or Tyrone Taylor are going to be able to lock in and contribute in the center field position. Same thing with Winker and Marte at DH. But at some point, the offense has to wake up because there's only so many times that this elite bullpen can bail you out of tricky situations when you only have a few hits and 2 runs to show for the first 6 innings of a game.
It is so much easier for us to break all this stuff down when you're looking at a team that's won 4 in a row, and you're looking at a team that is 6-3, and that even though they're not playing their best baseball, they're finding ways to win.
Yeah.
These are really good team victories because everybody is stepping up in key moments. It maybe isn't the prettiest throughout the 9 innings, but at the end, when they're playing the music and the Mets are celebrating a victory, how upset can you really be? But this is why it's good that you took 2 out of 3 from Miami. It's good that you came home and you beat Toronto. It's good that you're playing Miami again this week and the A's this week. This is where you can kind of, even though you're not playing your best baseball, you can find a way to win these games so that when the schedule gets a little tougher and you're playing Philly and you're playing Arizona and you're playing the Yankees, Red Sox, Dodgers back-to-back-to-back series, that you've put some wins in your back pocket so that you can weather a storm if one comes. So good on the Mets for sweeping. Good on the Mets for finding ways to win games even when they're not playing their best. And now it is a series with a team that we just saw in the Miami Marlins who don't instill a ton of fear in me. I mean, the reason why the Mets lost the second game of that series to Miami was self-inflicted wounds defensively. So, yeah. And the defense was much better. The first game Friday, Vientos gets the first 2 balls hit to him, and he has to make a play. And that's just how baseball works sometimes. The defense wasn't a problem in this series. And so you have Senga, you have Clay Holmes, you have McGill. You like your chances. You like the way the pitching matchup sets up for you for this Miami series this week. That is going to do it for us here on another edition of the Bleav in Mets podcast. We are back with you either Wednesday evening, Thursday morning. The pod will probably hit your podcast feed after this Miami series. So we will recap everything that went on in Mets land after this Miami series. But go ahead.
I have one quick note that I just want to share. I don't know if you saw this, but Matt Allen pitched today in his first professional game.
It looked
3
good.
Swinging strikeouts in the first inning, and he finished. His final line was 2 2/3, 2 hits, no runs, 1 walk, and 5 strikeouts. That's really exciting stuff. We talked about him a little bit earlier. Really good to see the pitching prospects especially a guy like Matt Allan who's had struggles with injury, be able to do that, his first professional start, it's kind of exciting.
The Mets were expecting a lot when they drafted Matt Allan. I think those expectations, because of the injuries, have been completely wiped off the board. And so at this point, I'm not expecting Matt Allan to be anything for the New York Mets. That's not in a negative way against Matt Allan. It's just he's dealing with a lot. But I am rooting for Matt Allan hard. And to
100%.
see him step on the mound and be as good as he was in this first start is a really encouraging sign. And so it would be really, really cool if he's able to kind of fly up through the system. Because he's 23, they can be maybe a little bit aggressive with him if he shows that he has, if the health questions are in the past and he's showing the arsenal that the Mets thought they were getting when they drafted him. So, yeah, rooting for him hard. And it would be a really cool story if he's able to come back from all of this and contribute in some way for the New York Mets. Rate, review, subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast. If you want to catch the video version of the show, just search Jack McKessie on YouTube, McKessy, so you can see Jack and I not attempting to do this. We did not pre-plan this, but we are matching. We are both wearing bright orange Mets caps and cream-colored hoodies. Again, don't know how this happened. This was not pre-planned, but the perks of watching the video version of the show. We are back with you after the Miami series and hopefully some more Mets victories, and hopefully the Mets offense has a couple of breakout performances and they're able to string together some nice offensive nights. But that's going to do it for us here on the Bleav in Mets podcast. We will talk to you after the Miami series, and as always, let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.